This episode of Around the Layout is powered by Rapido Trains.
Buying Rapido trains will make you happy.
Rapido's going back to the 90s for the return of the Mac. SD70 Macs in both HO and N scale in variations you've never seen before. Whether it's coal or racks, you need a 70 Mac. Check out all of the details at rapidotrains.com. Around the Layout podcast is heading to Chattanooga for the 2026 National Train Show, appearing in conjunction with Spring Creek Model Trains. Come check out everything Spring Creek has to offer, from the latest releases to the wide selection of models, supplies, and outstanding service that make them a favorite across the hobby. Whether in Deschler, Nebraska, Chattanooga, Tennessee, or at train shows coast to coast, stop in and say wow. Tully Models is heading to the St. Louis RPM July 23rd through 25th. Stop by their table for new feed mill kit and freight car load announcements, plus a large assortment of details to take your layout industries to the next level. Can't make it to St. Louis? Tully Models will also be at the National Train Show in Chattanooga, August 1st and 2nd. See more at tullymodels.com. Meet me in St. Louis for the largest annual RPM event in the U.S., July 23rd through the 25th. For more info, head to stlrpm.com. ATLP Extra is our monthly newsletter delivered right to your inbox each month. Sign up for free at atlpextra.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Around the Layout, where model railroaders come to tell their story. My name is Ray Arnott, so glad you could join us. It's time to find out what's happening in model railroading. Let's get started by finding out what's trending in the hobby with Dojo Trains.
This is Joe Martens from the Dojo Trains YouTube channel, and here's what's trending in model railroading. The brand new Scale Trains HO Scale General Electric AC44C4Ms for BNSF have just arrived and are shipping out from the warehouse. This is the first run of these models, which delivered alongside the second run of Norfolk Southern Wabtec AC44C6M rebuilds, which included the Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia or TAG Heritage Unit and the Thank You to Our Railroaders Unit. The C4Ms are rebuilt Santa Fe -9s, which received a conversion from DC to AC power, new electrical cabinets, and PTC equipment, all of which can be found on the models. A total of 20 units were converted by GE, with 6 road numbers to choose from in this production run. Make sure to look out for invoices from your dealer or on the Scale Trains website, as pre-orders are held until Friday, July 17th, when more should become available. Ready to celebrate America's 250th in model form? Rapido Trains has announced a few special semi-quincentennial models, including Metra SD70 MACH number 529 in both HO and N scale. This model will be coming at the same time as the previously announced SD70 Max, SD70 MACEs, and other Metra SD70 MACHs from Rapido at a date yet to be announced. There is no pre-order deadline set at this time, but this model will be hard to find upon delivery, so I'd recommend a pre-order if possible. This model will have similar details as the others, with Metra-style gyro lights, marker lights, and emergency strobe light, plus step lights, rotating bearing caps, and metal handrails. Also announced by Rapido are a special set of HO scale Greenbrier coil cars in 250th inspired paint schemes as part of their Home Shops partnership. Special Home Shops leasing, Texas and Great Northern, and Virginian and Ohio paint schemes are available for pre-order until August 15th, so check out Rapido's website for the neat artwork that will be on those cars. If you're in the market for some modern 6-axle power, Athearn has you covered for any SD70Ms you may be looking for in HO scale. In the Genesis line, a new run is currently on the way to your layout, including road names such as Union Pacific, R.J. Corman with the special 50th anniversary paint scheme, and the Indiana Railroad. Also included are BNSF SD75Is in the War Bonnet paint scheme. These models also feature various primed for grime variants as well, with replacement equipment doors, fading paint, and replacement parts from the factory. But that's not all, as Athearn has also announced the next run of these models too. This upcoming run has a pre-order due date of August 31st and expected delivery in November 2027, and includes road names such as Union Pacific with the Abraham Lincoln and We Are One paint schemes, EMD Leasing, and the Lake State Railway, including the 1776 Semi-Quincentennial Unit and 6347 in the Pierre Marquette commemorative livery. These models will have the same details that were present on the current run, with LED lighting and Tsunami 2 decoders as the DCC sound option. Sticking with modern locomotives, Scale Trains has announced their first ever run of GE ES44s in N-Scale. These models will have the same road name specific details as their HO Scale counterparts, with full LED lighting throughout in the number boards, ditch lights, and headlights. Road names include BNSF, Florida East Coast, CSX with some of their heritage schemes, and Norfolk Southern with the landmark locomotives the Chicago and the Altoona. Pre-orders are due by August 3rd with an estimated delivery in February 2027. If you're a fan of weathered rolling stock, the first delivery of Microtrains products under the Atlas Grit and Grime series is scheduled for late July. In N-Scale, a variety of weathered 40 and 50-foot single-door boxcars are on their way, with road names such as Railbox, Great Northern, and Pittsburgh and Lake Erie. In HO Scale, the factory weathered models are AccuRail kits, and include a weathered hopper for BNSF and Chicago Northwestern. More models are expected in fall 2026 in both scales, with N-Scale 56-foot General Service tank car 2-packs and a 4-pack of Columbia Basin Railroad 3-bay covered hoppers in the mix. In HO Scale, more weathered AccuRail kits are coming, with a pair of 50-foot X-Railbox exterior post boxcars and a Conrail X Pennsylvania 3-bay covered hopper in the lineup. Be sure to check out the Atlas website for the artwork on these models in their latest Microtrains by Atlas newsletter. And to round us out at the end of the train, Bowser has announced the N9 and N9E cabooses in HO Scale. Road names include Penn Central, Conrail, Indiana Harbor Belt, and a few generic painted unlettered colors perfect for your freelance railroad. Features will include prototypical details such as a flashing red FRA light where appropriate, etched metal grating, and interior details and lighting. Pre-order these cabooses by August 15th for delivery estimated in July 2027. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Dojo Trains YouTube channel for a weekly recap video covering HO Scale new product announcements and updates from a variety of manufacturers. Other videos include HO Scale new product reviews and helpful tips, with much more on the way. Once again, visit DAJOE Trains on YouTube.com. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Joe Martens from the Dojo Trains YouTube channel, and that's what's trending in model railroading.
Well, thank you, Joe, for that report. And now it's time for our deep dive. This is where we go beyond the press release with a newsmaker in the hobby. And joining me this month, Curtis Koch from Broadway Limited. Curtis, good to see you.
Ray, it's great to be back on the podcast and great to talk to you today. We got a lot of really cool stuff to go over.
Yeah, don't you know it's summer? I mean, I got a whole list here of all this product and things are coming out, but it's year round for BLI. I thought you'd just kind of, kick back in that Florida sun and with a cool drink and just not, but holy moly, you guys have been busy.
Listen, there's always a chance to suntan, but there is like a general rule of thumb down here in Florida that it usually at some point in the afternoon, it'll rain for about an hour. So it's like, all right, we might as well do something within that hour while we can't be outside in the sun. So we go inside and we make some new product announcements and everything. So we got a lot of fun stuff to go over. Even though it is summer, the hobby is still thriving. There are still people that still enjoy clubs in the air conditioning down here in Florida or wherever you might be where it's super hot outside, or to get out of the rain, like I was saying earlier. But even though in the northern part of the country, it does tend to die down because people are out on their boats, going fishing, going maybe to the lake house or going out to, do something with friends, barbecuing, grilling, whatever it might be. The hobby is still very much alive in the summer. And we at BLI recognize that. And we see a lot of really fun product coming out in the future this summer and in general coming out later on this year and into early next year. And it's so crazy because, Ray, I feel like we just talked at Amherst, a few shows ago or whatever it might have been, and we're already in July. So time is just flying, and business never stops. So we got a lot of stuff to get into today.
Absolutely. Well, we'll tuck all those distractions away, the barbecues and the picnics and all the other things that are going on, and dive right into this. And first on the list, Conrail CSX theater car in HO Scale, and I think I may have got a peek at this at Amherst. Am I right on that?
Yeah, both versions, the Conrail and CSX versions. This car has been really, really, really heavily requested from Conrail modelers. Dave Abeleys has been bothering me for at least 2 years now. Shout out to Dave for this car to be made after he saw that we announced our UP version of the business cars and the theater cars. And Dave knew some people that connected me with other people that helped us really make this car a really great option for Conrail modelers. This is the first time this car has ever been produced in plastic. A lot of brass cars have been out there before, but you know what? Like, a lot of people just don't have the money to afford some of those brass cars. As beautiful as they are and as detailed as they are, you get a really good deal with our version of the car. And we recently just announced some fantasy scheme versions, but the paint schemes are prototypical. The Grand Trunk Western is a version that we've recently announced. KCS, the Arthur Stillwell, and its black and striped, red and yellow striped version of the car has also been announced from us recently. And one thing too is that we found is that there was actually a second version of Conrail number 9 that we originally announced it from as the one version of the car from 1992 to 1997. But the Conrail guys are passionate, and they came out and said, hey, wait, there's some lettering and paint style differences from 1997 to 1999. You have to do that one. And so we went ahead and we announced it as part of our most recent product announcement back in June. So now you have 2 accurate versions of Conrail number 9. You've got multiple accurate versions of the CSX cars, including all the different name changes and paint style changes. So you've got it from when it was named Massachusetts, from its 1999 to 2006 appearance. You've got it from its Alabama name when it was from 2006 to 2010. And then it got named again and repainted a little bit from 2014 to 2021. Still named Alabama, though. And then finally, it received its more, I think, really cool B&O inspired scheme, but it's renamed now to W. Thomas Rice, and it's in its 2021 to present day appearance. So we've got accurate details and touch lighting features, including the spotlights on the CSX cars underneath the underbody, right next to some of the underbody details, right underneath the theater style seating. So if you go on our website, broadway-limited.com, and you take a look at some of those online renders that we've got, you'll see that it's right behind the first set of the set of trucks on the theater style of the car. It's a big rectangular light. It's really cool, a really unique prototype detail that we've been able to add. And the one thing about these business cars that have been so cool that we have really enjoyed hearing from customers, 2 things. One, I can't believe somebody hasn't offered this before, and I'm so glad you guys are doing it. That's like the first thing we hear. The second thing is that the touch lighting features that we have on these business cars have really been a game changer. With some of these things with decoder programming and the wands that you see out there on the market, you could always lose a wand and then you're kind of out of luck essentially to keep the light configuration however you want it. But when you look at prototype photos and videos, the light package and style changes depending upon operation. So instead of setting a decoder to multiple functions to do that, you can just touch the sensors on the roof of the car, and you can prototypically have the light function and configuration that you want on your car. It's a really cool feature. It's something that we brought out with the Kennefic Union Pacific business car because of how the different lighting configurations work on the car with the rail-mounted ditch lights on the platform, the red and green lights above. There were just tons of different variations of the lighting package that really just add to the element of being a prototype modeler. Like, right before we started recording, we were talking about how cool, RPMs are and how dedicated those modelers are. And It's so cool that so many guys now have these cars and are able to recreate those things from things they've seen out there, and it's just so cool to be able to have that function. And they're really, really just beautiful cars, a great price point that you're not going to have to deal with the brass cars. Just a simple touch of the roof of the car and you can turn on and off your lights. It's really, really cool. And if you look at the renders on our website and you come to our booth at future shows and you see samples of these cars, you're really going to be blown away. I know you saw it at Amherst, and I know Dave Ableys has been raving about these cars on Facebook and everything. So they really are just great options for people who want to model the business train. And if maybe you have a fictional railroad at home and you like the look of the Conrail or CSX car, we are offering unlettered versions, but it's in a primer gray. So it's basically a blank slate for you to add whatever paint scheme you want onto your car. And a lot of guys have been buying into that and getting different pieces of cars from here and there, of them being able to recreate a business train that they like, on their railroad.
Well, we know business cars showed up at an RPM out in Colorado, and for the freelance forum and home shops. So that'll definitely be an option to grab a car for your freelance railroad and create one. I've got a ATLP business car, which is a Broadway Limited. It has the touch lighting. Touch lighting is awesome. That's right. Been a lot of fun, and been able to, change the lights, dim the lights inside, give it the right look for the scenery that it's in. Awesome feature. I want to go back. One of the things that you mentioned in this project with these Conrail CSX theater cars, and it makes me think about the difference between just sitting back and saying you want something, or just simply sending in emails and saying, why don't you make this? Why don't you make that? And then having people that will say, we'd love for you to make this. Here's all the information, and how much that really kind of lays it up for folks like you and Broadway Limited, where now you're getting all the data. And especially this version you talked about between 97 and 99 with different lettering. Talk about how you worked through that and how that information coming in really helped.
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's it's all about knowing the right people in a way. One of the things that we really are fortunate with in the hobby is that a lot of people who have very passionate fan bases for particular eras of modeling. And one of the people that we spoke to, besides Dave, of course, from the Conrail Historical Society, my name was Brock and Wes. Both of those two guys, Wes in particular, if you ever go on our website, broadway-limited.com, and if you look at our homepage and you look up the latest from BLI and you click the view all, you'll view a blog that he wrote for us all about the car of Conrail number 9 and the CSXW Thomas Rice. And he actually went through, and you could go onto his website that he has that has photos of the interior of the car, including the CSX, because the interior is different for the CSX versus the Conrail car. What was the kitchen in the Conrail car is now a locker room for CSX employees. The first row of seating in the theater cars, in the theater part of the car, their first row of seating were taking out, and two what they call executive chairs were placed, which is almost kind of like an AMC style of a theater car, of a theater chair sitting at the front. And the light configurations, all that sort of details. Wes was an amazing asset for us to be able to say, like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of these details? Can any of these be omitted? What are your thoughts on, these underbody details? Do you have a better timeline as to when this sort of happened? And a lot of these guys who are modeling a specific area or have that niche history of business trains or any other prototype, really, we're just using the CSX car and Conrail car as an example here. A lot of these guys have great data and great access to certain things, and they're willing to help it because they want the car themselves, and they have a passion for it that they share with other modelers of, Conrail or CSX. And it's a really great tool for us to be able to go to these guys and be able to have the resources. A lot of these historical societies, when we were going to talk about a bunch of other projects here on the episode today, and I'll tell you, a lot of these groups that we work with, whether it be the group that runs and operates a steam locomotive and is restoring it, to the guys that want to have a business car made, or have data of a diesel locomotive from the 1950s, like a shark nose diesel or whatever it might be. These guys have a passion for it, and they have so many resources, and it's guys like them that allow us to make these models really come to life and bring the character of these cars, of these prototypes, to model railroads across the country. And again, big shout out to Wes and Brock, who were huge help for us. A lot of these guys will actually take the time to look at our design and will comment like, hey, this part is oversized. Hey, this thing needs to be tweaked. This window is, a slightly too long. It needs to match with these things. And they send back photos and diagrams of what to back up their support. And that directly helps us to be able to go back to the design team and say, hey, we need these things changed. And a lot of times you get those changes, and boom, you get a fantastic model that a rivet counter would love on their model railroad. It really goes a long way. And I'll talk about many other examples of referencing what you just brought up here for some of the other projects we're going through, because it'll be really, really cool to see how all these different little things, especially when we get into steam locomotives, how all the niche little valves and details and stuff really go a long way.
Well, certainly rewarding for BLI to be able to put out a better product and more realistic and towards the prototype. But it's also got to be very rewarding for the folks that have been involved and eventually when the model comes out to be able to say, I had a hand in this. There's got to be a great sense of pride in that.
Oh, 100%. One of the guys that helps us with our Santa Fe projects recently at the Santa Fe convention at a clinic talking about the process that it is to work with us and to, make all these different Santa Fe type models come to life in both HO and N scale, and the work that goes into that and everything like that. And a lot of people find that information so cool. I know as a customer before I started working at Broadway, I found that information fascinating. And it really just adds another level to the efforts that we go in. And I know other manufacturers do the same thing, but especially when it comes to high quality steam locomotives, it really adds to the element that we want to get this right. And we want to do this in the way that, Broadway knows how to build these things. And it's lived up and it's built our reputation on adding these highly detailed and honestly, in some cases, pretty niche steam locomotives that not many guys would think would come to market. We're able to do it. And it's the help of those guys at the historical societies that, contribute to that.
Well, you hinted at it. Let's go out of the Northeast with these Conrail and CSX theater cars down to the Southwest. We're talking ATSF. What do we got?
Yeah, so the 2900s. This locomotive class is part of our brass hybrid series. These locomotives are literal works of art, Ray. They have handcrafted brass boilers and tenders. The workers at the factory literally will handcraft these tenders and boilers for the models. And then to add on to the tractive effort side of it too, it is called the hybrid for a reason. It's not an all brass model, but you still have the quality of detail work of a brass model. But you get that extra tractive effort with a die-cast chassis. So you get that extra pulling power. Our steam locomotives are known for the pulling power, and we have that along with so many separately applied details that when you get the final product and you just take a look at it, you go, wow. And a lot of customers, especially when we've gone and had 3D print models, shout out to Matt Herman of 3D Central, who's made 3D prints of many of the different steam locomotives that we're building at the moment. A lot of guys will just sit there and go, that's what it's going to look like. And we're like, yes, that's what it's going to look like. And they're like, wow, that's incredible. I can't believe you guys have got so much detail in there. And the hybrid series of locomotives that we've got coming out with the 2900s, the R3A, and a few others that I can't talk about right now are really just make it stand out in the market. And it really brings another added level of, like I was saying earlier, being able to bring some of these niche steam locomotives to market. And the one thing I mentioned, earlier about, how these different experts are helping us with these projects, the Santa Fe 2900s, there's thankfully several surviving examples across the country, but one is actually still operating or just got restored to operation. And that's 2926 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the folks at New Mexico Heritage Rail were very kind enough to not only just give us tons of photos of the time of every part on the locomotive, and I literally mean every part. I've got a package of photos on my desktop at work here where it's got, I probably have, no joke, probably 300 to 400 different photos of different things from the cab roof to the cab interior to the trucks to the side rods. Every aspect of a steam locomotive you can think of, we have photos of for our references. And then now that it's restored and operating, of course, we're going to offer sound versions with smoke. And the folks at New Mexico Heritage Rail were awesome in letting Aiden and Joe, our sound engineers, go out, literally climb on top of the locomotive, get sounds of the whistle, the bell, the air compressors, everything you can think of that a steam locomotive has while it's being fired up or while it's operating, we were able to get sounds of. And it's really just a testament to how hard these societies and organizations work at preserving rail history. And it brings that extra element of realism to your models. And I am a Santa Fe guy, so I'm a little biased in saying this, but I'm probably very excited for these locomotives. I personally have 3 on order, and I am just so ecstatic that we were able to do these, and the level of detail and quality that will go into these models. Santa Fe guys are going to eat their hearts out because they're going to love to see these on their railroad.
with the help that you get from these historical societies, you got to be cheering them on you got to be cheering these folks on with all of this. And it's such a huge benefit to you. And then the information sharing, it really is the spirit of model railroading and railroading in general, that information sharing that goes on that helps benefit not only the historical society, but BLI. And of course, at the end, the modeler who receives this awesome product in hand.
Absolutely. And one of the things we love to do is try to collaborate with some of these societies to help give them exposure. They recently had a steam up, and we were able to promote that a little while ago. And then recently on our website, if you go to our website, broadway-limited.com, one of the gentlemen who's actually the chief mechanical officer for New Mexico Heritage Rail, Henry Roberts, wrote a little post for us about the history of the 2926. And there's some photos of it there, hauling like an express passenger train. There's some close-up shots of like the roller bearings, some information about the society and the locomotive itself, tons of photos of the locomotive being moved from its park, which was Coronado Park, to its restoration site. And then, of course, when we're able to help promote other projects that it's got going on. So there was some videos on their YouTube channel that mentioned that they're actually working on bringing the south end of the old rail yards in Albuquerque back to life as kind of like a base operations. And for the locomotive and its future rolling stock, like the tool cars and everything, it's also going to be a part of a museum. And so it's going to be a great effort, and us to be able to share the vision of the society and promote the videos that they've got coming out, and encouraging people to make donations to help keep this society going strong. It really does not only just benefit our relationship with them, but it also is a great way for us to kind of keep the history that behind these prototypes that we're building still live on for future generations.
How does the process work as far as deciding on this project? And does the restoration of a locomotive factor in when you're looking at a project saying, well, we'd like to do this because they're restoring one? Or is it that you're doing it and then they restore? Like, how does that all work together, and how does that all come together?
Yeah, it kind of varies, honestly, from locomotive to locomotive. Obviously, like, you look at the Santa Fe 2926 here, there's a lot of Santa Fe fans. There's a lot of other classes and road numbers of the locomotive that are readily available. Another locomotive that we will talk about soon, like the New Haven R3A, there's no surviving classes, but there's a lot of passionate New Haven guys out there. So the process kind of starts with like, okay, what variations can we do? It's always a benefit if there is a restored version, or even a couple that are at least preserved, might not be operational, but people might have seen at a park or something like that. And there's like a lot of personal connections to it. Those also help for us to decide, hey, we want to build this version of this model, or, along those lines. The one thing in particular about steam locomotives is that there are so many unique variations out there that it's, for us being the primary manufacturer in steam locomotives, it's impossible for us to announce so many variations or different locomotives, because there's very wide ranging of popularities. There's a couple of locomotives that are restored that I don't think personally are popular enough to warrant to make a model out of, but I could be proven totally wrong. And part of the reason why we have our product suggestion portal on our website is because if you go on our website and you fill out the form, again, broadway-limited.com/pages/product suggestion portal, you go on there and you fill out, hey, this is the type here. And if we see with that data, we've got so many requests for this locomotive, it's like, wow, okay, let's move that up the list. Let's start looking into it. What other opportunities can we use with that tooling and everything? The one example too is most recently is, the PRR G5 that we're building. We got so many requests on, not only in person at shows, but in our product suggestion portal. It was probably in the thousands of people that wanted to request this particular 10-wheeler from the Pennsylvania Railroad. And it helps that there's 3 that are still around. One is PRR 5741 at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. And then locomotive 35 and 39 of the Long Island Railroad are also being preserved right now. So even though they're not operating yet or being preserved for just static display, there is still a value there where a lot of people want those models and those road names because it adds something that they've seen before, and they want to have that represented in some sort of way on their railroad, or fictional way of saying like, hey, this locomotive got restored to an excursion locomotive. So there is a lot of options out there for us to dive into, but we do take customer feedback and customer requests seriously, especially when we get a lot of them, because then we know that there's a market demand for it.
Let's dive a little bit more into that Pennsylvania G5 and what you have there. Tell us about that model.
Sure. So that one is a die-cast locomotive, die-cast boiler, die-cast tender. Because of that, it's not at a higher price point as you would get with our brass hybrid models. We have multiple versions of this locomotive with both era-specific details and road-specific details. I mentioned the Long Island Railroad 35 and 39, and unfortunately, we're not going to do that in this first run just because the tooling for the tender of the locomotive itself would drive the cost of our tooling costs way too expensive. So we're going to save that for the second production run. I know a lot of people wanted that version, but you can still get an accurate Long Island Railroad G5. Long Island was a subsidiary of the Pennsylvania Railroad. And there are plenty of different versions that we are offering. Of course, you got multiple road numbers with its 70 P78 tender from its pre-1940 appearance. Then, of course, you got the later versions where it's got its 70 P82A tenders. And then we've got, of course, 5741 as it appears today in Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. And then we were also offering a couple of Long Island Railroad versions post 1940 appearance. The road numbers we picked out actually were the ones that had actual evidence that they used the specific tenders, the 70 P82A tenders. So it'll save us money on tooling. We can still offer an accurate version of the Long Island Railroad G5, but we also have the opportunity to make a ton of Pennsylvania specific steam. And especially, this is one of our first 10-wheelers that we've ever built. So it adds to so many potential options for us to possibly use some of that tooling for other projects down the road. We would just have to look into, of course, making sure that the spacing of the drivers is the same, and amongst a bunch of other things too. But the G5 was very heavily requested. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I probably had, over the last 2 or 3 years, people come up to me at Amherst and other areas of shows, and in the thousands have asked me, "Are you going to do this? Can you build this? It's a popular model. I would buy multiples of them, et cetera, et cetera." And it just added fuel to the fire. And then when we looked at our product suggestion portal and saw a lot of requests for it, it's like, all right, that's got to move up the pipeline. We've got a lot of people who want this model. And in the end, it's just another fun Pennsy steamer. I know a lot of people kind of roll their eyes and say, oh, of course, it's in the name Broadway Limited. You got to offer another Pennsy steamer. But you know what? Pennsy modelers come out in force, man, and they want their stuff, and we're happy to provide it. But we do branch off into other things too, not just Pennsy.
One of the things that you mentioned in the last two announcements was a challenge in variations. Do you find that steam variations are more prevalent than, say, diesel? Is that the case? And maybe explain a little bit why.
In most cases, I would say yes. There's the New Haven R3A, for an example, which we can get to. There are 3 era-specific version types. You've got the versions from 1928 to 1939. You've got versions from 1940 to 1945. And then you've got versions from 1945 to 1950. All have unique details. It's the same general, length and chassis and, boiler shape and everything, but the details of piping and the details of where the bell placement might be and where the shield on the front blocking the third cylinder and air pumps on the front, air compressors on the front, also have different variations. There's a lot of different variations to steam locomotives that not only make it unique for us to model and to offer. It depends, of course, on where the placement of that stuff is, because that will increase the cost, because we have 3 types of a locomotive. The Santa Fe 2900 class that we're building, we've got one version that's dedicated to 2926 as it appears today. We've got one version that has the as-built appearance, so the locomotive is mainly, in terms of size and everything, intact, but the locomotive has tapered side rods. And then, of course, the decoration of the locomotive is a little bit different. Like the 2926 has a more brighter tarpon gray smoke box door, whereas the as-built appearances has several other different details, like the tapered side rods, a darker tarpon gray, and then the stack variations too, because you've got, for the standard stack, you've got the extension stack, and then you've got the curved stack for those locomotives. And then, of course, you got the post-1947 version where you've got the Timken side rods. And then, of course, 2900s, for example, you've got the dual beam headlights, which kind of looks like a pig nose on the front of the locomotive. A few of them received that. So we have that detail on there. So we got multiple different versions of the locomotive represented. So it does add up a little bit, but the variations in terms of like, hey, we can use this chassis to kind of create something like a perfect version of this example. This is the Penzi H10 we've done in the past, where the chassis and the tender, we were able to, basically reuse, but make a few modifications to it where we can get more uses out of our tooling because it represents several 280 variations that other railroads use. And of course, there's some details that we can't remove, but the overall shape of the locomotive is a good stand-in for some other roads that we might not be able to produce accurately. Because some of those earlier 280 versions are so unique that it's almost as if we have to find a whole new project. And especially when some of those include, some of the driver size is different. The length in between the drive wheels in general might be different. So there's a lot of different factors that go into being able to reuse tooling for certain steam locomotives. But the detail, the exterior detail variations for us, we're able to, pretty much reuse and offer. And it's become a really fun project for us to kind of say, hey, let's do this one and maybe save this third one for a different time. Or, look at the G5s and say, hey, we've got two different tender types. Tooling a third is a little too expensive, but we can really look forward to offering the two preserved ones accurately in the next run. So there's tons of different variations. I'm just kind of scratching the surface here as to what our thought process goes into it and the behind the scenes element of it. But it really does add up when you've got so many different accurate versions you want to build that customers are demanding of. And we want to fulfill that, we wouldn't have that reputation of building this high quality steam locomotive if we weren't going to go the extra mile for it. So it does add up. It does make the process makes the whole process as a whole, I should say, very, very difficult to address which ones we want to tackle first. But depending upon the amount of work that goes into it, we're able to usually kind of spread those details across.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds difficult, and it's got me thinking here, like all these variants, and then maybe this is just a whole other podcast. Maybe we got to get you on and just talk about variants in steam locomotives and why, because it's like, did they just keep changing the blueprint every single time they made it? Like, couldn't you just do like maybe 10 exactly the same? Like, what is this? Is this a result of early 20th century manufacturing? What's going on here that made these all different? Or is it when they got out in the field and the railroads were making changes to them on the fly, or, one mechanic over here did something and the next guy did it a little different? There's got to be a whole podcast right in that, Curtis. And they did all these variations. So we won't go too crazy on that, but it's good to know when people wonder why there's only a limited amount of locomotives released. And this is why, because there's just a wide variety of variants in all of these models.
Yeah. And tooling a highly detailed steam locomotive is expensive. We build a lot of highly detailed steam locomotives, and we're only able to release so many in a certain year or announce so many in a certain year. And then we have to save some that we might have already finished, but for a future run to kind of help balance the finances. And it makes some of the rerun projects like the big boy really, really important for us, because if we want to offer some of those obscure locomotives that people are wondering about, and guys sometimes come up to me and roll their eyes and say, another big boy. And I'm like, yeah, but the money that we make from the big boy projects help fund the locomotive you want, help fund the G5, help fund the 2900s, help fund the New Haven R3A, and many others. So people will roll their eyes and say that the market doesn't need another big boy. But I'm telling you, if you were out at Horseshoe Curve or watching it pace 2102 in the Northeast, or watched it out west in Sacramento and making its way across the country on its current tour. People by the thousands are trackside to see this thing. And it's important for us to jump on that. I mean, from a business standpoint, it really is. There's just tons of hype around it right now. And it's important for us to use the big boy where there's no tooling costs involved, really, except for a few new little details that we'll kind of go into on this next run of big boys. But the same general premise is there for us to use that for so many other projects where it's going to be so popular that we're going to sell out, and that money can go to make whatever people want us to build. And that's why we have the product suggestion portal to help us determine what to build. Everything loops in together and comes full circle, I swear, when you're running a business like this in model railroading.
Well, and especially the big boy, because we're not talking about a popularity amongst us model railroaders or even railroad fans. This has gone mainstream.
100%.
You see the coverage of this is on major news networks and it's in the papers. It's everywhere. Social media is just completely full of all the big boy events, and they got the Pennsylvania event where people were passing out. They were out going out in the heat to go see this thing. So yeah, that's a huge news event. And of course there's going to be a pull for that. And it sounds like you've left some room there to bring back the big boy. Talk about the big boy and what we can expect on this new offering.
Absolutely. So this new offering of big boys, of course, we talked about all the hype and mainstream coverage that it's been getting. It's the perfect time for us to offer it back. And there's many new versions that we're offering in this run. There's 3 new versions of 4014 in particular. Of course, you got your East Coast tour that many of people have seen out in the Northeast with its eagle, its placard below the eagle. It's got the herald up front with the red, white, and blue stripe that says 1776 to 2026. All those details are on our model. We also offering it with 2 additional details. We've got a new dual beam headlight to be accurately portrayed like how the locomotive looks today. And we've also got correct new pilot up front. So getting this East Coast tour big boy, if you saw it and you want to recreate that moment on Horseshoe Curve or run it next to your Broadway Limited 2102, you've got the most accurate version of that locomotive right now that's available for pre-order. Other 2 versions of 4014 we're offering are the West Coast tour, which basically has the same details as the East Coast tour. The only difference is that front shield and herald is just the normal standard Union Pacific 4014. If you go on our website and look at the big boy project, the photo that we have right now of the big boy on the button that you click or on the website, that's the West Coast version. We're trying to get rights to an East Coast version of the photos that we can then use and show for people to get a glimpse of. But it's really, really cool. And the final version of 4014 that we've got is the 2025 appearance with the smoke deflectors. Had an excursion between Cheyenne and Denver, and the steam crew added the wind deflectors on the side. We've got that version accurately portrayed on the locomotive as well. It's also got the triple dynamo for the PTC details and everything else like that. So we've got some really, really cool new features on these models. And of course, if you've seen the locomotive out trackside and you've listened to Ed Dickens and you said stay 25 feet back and everything, these models are going to be really, really cool additions to your railroad, especially since we've got some UP business cars that will match the locomotive. And we've also got some cool heavyweight options that are coming down the pipeline that I can't go really further into, but we've got tons of really cool options to recreate that excursion that you've seen all across the country where it's been traveling. And we're really excited and thankful. And I've been accused that we are in cahoots with Union Pacific because of how many times we reoffer the big boy and how many different times, they make different changes to it. And I assure you, there is no, cahootsing or whatever there might be. We're just really glad that UP has got this tool that is not only just a great public relations tool for people, but it just introduces the next generation to steam. And at the same time, I've seen many people who have sent photos to me getting their 4014 box signed from, the Broadway Limited 4014, and Ed Dickens is signing the box of it, so it's really cool to see how these locomotives are attracting a newer generation of people. And it's just such a cool public relations tool. And we're honored to be a small part of that by having you recreate that on your model railroad.
It's funny how this whole entire tour has really elevated the quasi-celebrity of Ed Dickens. And I saw a video of him grabbing food for the crew at Burger King. And I'm like, that guy's gone in the wrong place, because if he goes into the right place, he's never going to have to pay for a meal. And he could probably have a really good meal on a lot of folks that have a big passion for Ed and his crew and everything that they've done. And what an amazing way to celebrate 250 years of the United States of America by having this tour and being able to get out and bring people trackside and absorb it right in the, analog way of enjoying life. Get out there and actually see and hear this thing and smell it and feel it in the ground and be able to really have something to really remember our 250th. You talked about the details on the front of the locomotive, and although you're not petitioning Union Pacific to make these changes, how do you guys get the details for that? Is that information that's shared, or do you guys have to go out and do your own research to make sure that you get those details right?
It's a little bit of both. A lot of times we actually will acquire some photos from photographers who are willing to share that with us. And usually they're close enough to where we can get a pretty good glimpse as to like the details and the writing on it. Actually, one of our employees actually went out and acquired photos of it when it was on its tour on vacation. And we were able to get some really decent photos while it was on static display of that front herald, of the text on it, because a lot of people especially with decoration, you want the locomotive to not only look the part, but when you zoom in on your magnifying glass or on your phone camera, whatever it might be, and you want to make sure that it's legible, you get the font right and everything. And a lot of those extra details that go into making these locomotives stand out, you really get some really great photography. Honestly, some of the photos that I found of it when they announced it was, I follow Ed Dickens on Facebook. So he shared photos of that ahead of time. And I was like, hey, Matt, look at that. We got some new versions that we got to, look into for 4014. And a lot of those reference photos that we can find online, or photographers who, people who are friends with some of our crew and staff at BLI might be able to send photos in, and we can get some good reference shots of that. It really adds another element to us to be able to accurately recreate that, especially when we have enough reference photography and other assets to be able to give to the designers and say, hey, here's what we want. And then they go ahead and do their magic and make it look great.
Well, the big boy made it to the Northeast, but it didn't quite make it into New England. But I see a locomotive here that is quintessential New England, and the name on it, New Haven, says everything you need to know.
Oh, absolutely. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier with the multiple versions of this one. And the New Haven R3A is, I'm not a New Haven guy by any means, but I love the look of this locomotive. It's another one of our brass hybrid locomotives. So it's, like I said earlier, it's a work of art. It's got handcrafted brass boiler and tender. It's got that die-cast chassis. So these locomotives were primarily used in freight service. So you're going to have that tractive effort, to get that heavy freight train over your railroad's grades, toughest grades. And the really cool thing about these locomotives is that they were a third cylinder type locomotive. So they have of course, the two cylinders that everybody sees on the outside, but the third cylinder was actually in the center underneath the boiler. And if you look at the renders we have on our website of these locomotives, you'll notice that the front pipe, the front part above the pilot, not the pipes, above the pilot, you will see the accurate version of it with the third cylinder model. Now, it doesn't function on our model, but it is there, and it's such a cool detail. And especially if you look at other versions of the locomotive, because we got three. Like I said earlier, we got 1928 to 1939. We've got 1940 to 1945, and then right up until its retirement in 1950, we got those versions modeled as well. You really have some really cool looks to it. My personal favorite is the 1940 to 1945 appearance. I think it looks really cool with the metal shrouding protecting the air pumps on the front of the locomotive. And you've got so much pipe work and details. You got, bell whistle and cords. You've got so many really cool, accurate details. And these are our first mountain types that we're building. And there's just something really, really cool about, even though it's black and it's got the gold lettering, for whatever reason, there's something classy about the New Haven scripture on the tender of these locomotives that just really stand out and make it pop. And I think that these locomotives are just the perfect addition to any New Haven modeler. Even if they're just slightly out of steam, there's always one or two that were still on hand as a backup in case a diesel broke down or something like that. So it's always really cool to be able to bring some of these niche locomotives to life. And the R3A in particular is something that we're really excited for.
Yeah, that's really classy. Love seeing that simple New Haven on the tender. It reminds me of the steam locomotive that is in Essex at the Valley Railroad.
Oh, yeah.
And the 3025, and it's New Haven on the tender. When they came out with that and they didn't put the Valley Railroad logo on it, they put New Haven. I was like, that is just so cool. And there is a special way to say it. It's got to say, it's almost like a run on New Haven. Like you don't say New Haven, it's New Haven. Like that's how it is. So awesome stuff. And, right in my backyard of sorts, the matches right in this area, which is very cool to see that covered. Now you're covering New England, and we had 5 really awesome HO scale announcements. How about our 1/160th friends? What do you got for them?
Oh, man. Well, we got a lot of stuff coming up for N-Scale. Most recently, I can give a couple of cool updates. The N-Scale Shark Nose, we're really excited about these. We just received our first tooling sample of these locomotives. If you go on to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Broadway Limited, and you scroll down a little bit, you'll see 2 N-Scale models that we've got. One is the Santa Fe 3751, which we'll get into in just a second. And the other is the N-Scale Shark Noses. We had samples received earlier. They look great. The tooling is approved, and they run really, really good as well. Really smooth. And these locomotives are really, I think, going to earn their reputation as they were kind of nicknamed as luggers amongst railroaders. I think these will fit right into any locomotive or into any model railroad in N-Scale who's got Pennsylvania, we've got B&O, we've got New York Central, we've also got the Delaware and Hudson, the 2 surviving Soul A units that are, I believe, one or both are still around, and those are going to be available too. So if you go to our website, broadway-limited.com, and you go on to the N-Scale section, you'll find those diesels. It's really, really awesome to see these locomotives come to life in N-Scale, because there hasn't really been a quality shark nose on the N-Scale market in quite some time. So we're really excited to be one of the first to do that. And we're really excited about how there's also some freight cars that we're doing in N-Scale that will pair perfectly with these. I'm just going to give a quick plug about our HO scale, or N-Scale rather, ARA 4-bay coal hoppers that are coming in 6-pack variants. And then we've also got the sound and no sound N-Scale stock cars. So if you're looking for something a little unique to add to your freight railroad or to your freight car roster, we've got no sound stock cars. We've got New York Central in there. We've got Great Northern, Santa Fe. Oh my gosh, we got 2 schemes of Great Northern I'm looking at. Sorry, we got Union Pacific, and we also got 2 fantasy schemes in there. So if you're looking for some fun variation into your railroad, if you don't like the sound version, you can get a 2-pack non-sound version with different road numbers. But if you want the sound version and you want to be cool and fun and have some people be like, what did I just hear? It's this, the sound stock cars in N-Scale. Again, we've got hog and we've got cow sounds. So when the cars are rolling down the track, you will hear one of those 2 sounds coming out of your stock cars. It's really, really fun to see these, and we're excited about the potential that these can add into your consist of freight cars to go with these shark nose locomotives. And
Where'd that recording session go?
You know what? That was what I like to say BC. That was before Curtis time at Broadway Limited. So I was not there for that, but I would imagine that it was a little smelly.
Awesome. Now bring it home with the Santa Fe 3751 in N-Scale.
N-Scalers, Santa Fe 3751 is coming. This is another excursion locomotive that a lot of guys have been asking for. Again, we talked earlier, Ray, about how a lot of these societies will, allow us to access to their locomotive that they're working on. And the folks at the San Bernardino Railroad Historical Society, who store, maintain, and operate the 3751, were really awesome and allowed us to climb on the locomotive. Aiden was able to go in and get sounds off the locomotive. It sounds really, really good. I posted a video of it on our TikTok page. So if any of your listeners are hip and are on TikTok, if you go to our account, you can go ahead and take a glance at the sounds of the locomotive. We got whistle, bell, compressor, everything on there to sound, and tons of steam hissing too, because Aiden was actually there. And I don't know if you know this, Ray, but the locomotive is actually maintained on the old Santa Fe Roundhouse site in Los Angeles, California, Redondo Junction. And so Aiden's literally in the middle of an active Amtrak yard getting the sounds of these locomotives. So he really put together a great sound package on these. And we expect these to be arriving sometime around September. It'll usually depend upon how long it takes to be on a boat. So as soon as they arrive to the Port of Los Angeles, we'll let everybody know, because N-Scalers have been really anxious and patient with us and getting these models delivered. And I think they're going to be really, really well received. I think a lot of N-Scalers are going to be really happy about these. Besides the 3751, we do have other road numbers too. So if you are looking to acquire one and not necessarily use it for steam excursion purposes, we do have other road numbers, like I said, that you can get. 3759 is another popular one that's currently on display in Kingman, Arizona. We also have 3761, 3758, 3756, and we have all those both in Paragon 4 with sound, DCC, and smoke in N-Scale. And then if you prefer to add your own Next 18 decoder, we've got them in our Stealth series, so you can customize the sounds or whatever decoder preference you like to have on your railroad. So these will be coming again very, very soon. We're hoping for September. We appreciate N-Scalers for being patient with us as we've been trying to work the kinks on making sure that these locomotives run really, really smooth. They should be on the water sometime in August. And if everything goes well, they'll be in stores early September. But like I said, we'll keep everybody posted as it gets closer.
Well, it's great to hear you here on the podcast, and we talk about all these releases. And of course, we'll share the links to all of them on our website, aroundthelayout.com/244. But being in person is always awesome. And let's talk about being in person. Folks that have been listening to this podcast so far have heard about two big events that are going on. And let's talk about them one more time. We're going to start with the St. Louis RPM. We're going to find Broadway Limited there, right?
Yep. Ken Silvestri will be there. And then shortly after that, we will be at the NMRA show in Chattanooga. We're really excited to be there for that. We've got other shows coming up too. We'll be at Train Fest in Milwaukee and a few other locations as well. Oklahoma City is a new one we'll be going to this year, right after Train Fest. So please go onto our website. You'll find more information there. But be sure, if you're ever at a show where we're at, please stop by, say hi, and we're always willing to talk trains with you.
Awesome stuff. Great to be out at these RPMs and train shows and talking to folks and hopefully finding all the new ideas for the next releases, and coming full circle to what we were talking about before, when you're with the modelers and being able to get information from them to be able to make the models better and make them more realistic. And that's certainly a great partnership between BLI and the modeler.
Absolutely. And it's always really cool to see people come up and they want to talk trains with you and just get really excited about the offerings. And it's always really fun to see what other new announcements are out there just besides Broadway Limited. And it's always great to interact and meet new clubs that you've never heard of before, or meet new dealers. These shows are a great way to take advantage of not only just seeing the manufacturer side, but you also can find a great deal. I know Spring Creek is always at these shows too. They're always hustling. So if you pay attention to visiting any of their guys, stop by and say hi to them. And of course, stop by Broadway Limited and say hi to me and Ken.
Well, we'll be looking forward to seeing you in Chattanooga, and we'll be seeing Ken at St. Louis. Thank you so much for coming by and telling us what's happening at Broadway Limited.
Ray, thanks for having me, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
And now it's time for the RPM report. Let's turn it over to Eric Hansmann.
We have passed the midway point of 2026, and it's time for your July Railroad Prototype Modeler Report. The St. Louis RPM is one of the largest prototype modeler events each year, with thousands of models on display. It'll be held on July 23rd through the 25th at the Gateway Convention Center in Collinsville, Illinois. Members of the Operations Special Interest Group and the Layout Design Special Interest Group are presenting some clinics. The Layout Design Group will offer layout consultations. Sign up if you need some help. August wraps up with the Waterloo Railway Exposition in Ontario, Canada for the final weekend, and September features the Anthracite Railroad Modelers Meet in Hamburg, Pennsylvania on the 19th through the 21st. I attend a few RPM events each year and take several models to display. Each of these events usually offers a model display card PDF file to download from their website. I have also posted a generic model display card file on the RPM calendar page. It's easy to complete the card info as you pack up before traveling. It's one more thing you don't have to do once you arrive at the RPM site. I try to take different models to these events, and I keep a spreadsheet of the models I've taken and the RPM meets where they've been displayed. Am I nuts? I don't know. You make the call. For information and links to these and more upcoming events, check the RPM calendar link at aroundthelayout.com/RPM. Make plans to attend a prototype modeler meet near you. I'll be back next month with another RPM report. Until then, let the prototype be your guide.
Well, thank you, Eric. And now it's time to find out what's happening in and around ATLP universe. Thank you to everyone who has purchased a Tony Sissons Are You a Modeler t-shirt. $10 of each shirt sold will go to the learning station efforts of Tony Sissons, Butch Eiler, and Dave Opedisano at RPMs across the country. These three gentlemen have provided an amazing opportunity for so many to sit down, use their supplies, and get hands-on lessons on weathering, and these funds will be used to keep this going. You can order yours today at aroundthelayout.com/shop, and it can be found in the FRA collection. And speaking of the fan shop, I've gone through the entire shop and slashed prices on nearly every item. I hope you'll take another look and find the new prices to be much more budget friendly. The link again is aroundthelayout.com/shop. The St. Louis RPM is nearly upon us. I'll be out in Collinsville, Illinois, July 23rd through the 25th for the largest annual RPM event in the United States. I sure hope you'll join us for all of the festivities surrounding this event. You can learn all of the details at stlrpm.com. Then, after a few days home, I'm off to Chattanooga, Tennessee for the 2026 National Train Show, thanks to the folks at Spring Creek Model Trains. I'll be there for Thursday's Somerville Steam Special as a guest of Scale Trains, then at the Spring Creek Model Trains display at the National Train Show on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Be sure to stop by and say hello and check out all the great products from Spring Creek Model Trains. After the National Train Show, Spring Creek Model Trains is off to Wyoming and the Roundhouse Festival at the Evanston's Historic Roundhouse and Rail Yards August 7th, 8th, and 9th. You'll find a link to this and the entire Spring Creek Model Train show schedule in our show notes, aroundthelayout.com/244. Congratulations to Jeffrey S., the winner of the ModelTrainBox.com hard-sided travel case. Jeffrey S., if you're listening, check your email. And thank you to ModelTrainBox.com for your support of ATLP Extra, our free monthly newsletter that you can find out more about at atlpextra.com. And speaking of winning, if you're listening to this on the release day, we're right in the middle of our Christmas in July operating crew giveaway. We'll go live on the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube channel with a chance to win each night. To be eligible for this giveaway, simply sign up for the operating crew for as little as $3 a month at aroundthelayout.com/crew. Operating crew members also receive an exclusive sticker, discounts to select retailers, previews of upcoming episodes, invites to 2 weekly live chats, and much more. After you sign up, you'll be eligible for the following night's drawing. I'm Ray Arnott, and now you know what's happening in model railroading. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Around the Layout. Learn more about today's episode, check out past shows, and much more on our website, aroundthelayout.com. Show your support by becoming an operating crew member at aroundthelayout.com/crew. Follow us on social media, aroundthelayout.com/social. And send us your feedback, aroundthelayout@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us around the layout. Well, the big boy didn't. Let me say that again. Well, the big boy. Oh, wow. The big boy made it to the north. Wow. Holy mackerel, Ray. Do you know how to podcast?